two-time first team, Ivy League Player of the Year. Then went on to coach college at Yale, Brown, head coached at Hartford, Fairfield, and Dartmouth. You played pro lacrosse, MLL, All-Star, and box lacrosse. Super impressive. And then you coached the PLL, where you went to 3 championships in a row with the Chaos, won it in 2021, and were Coach of the Year in 2019. So the bio is incredible, Andy. And from my personal experience, you're one of the greatest players I've ever seen play, as well as one of the greatest coaches I've ever been around. So I knew you just went through the recruiting process with your son. And could you give any advice to the players and parents out there who going through this process, how to navigate it? It's, somewhat stressful. What would you say would be some good advice?
Sure. First and foremost, Chris, it's a real pleasure to always connect with you. You're one of my favorite people in the sport and outside of the sport. We got a lot of mutual friends. We got a rich history together, and it's always great to see you and to hang. So thank you for a humbling introduction, and thanks for time to have me on here. Look, I think there's a few things that families and prospects can do to maximize their chances of controlling what at the end of the day amounts to be an uncontrollable process. The first and most important thing is they have to be conscious of maxing out their academic profile, right? That's going to be their transcript, which takes into consideration the strength of their schedule, their GPA, the trend of their GPA, and the quality of their school. Okay, that's number one. Work as hard as you can in school, strive to get A+ across the board. The second piece to maxing out your academic profile would be, if you have the resources and can afford to get an SAT tutor, you want to get an SAT or ACT tutor, and you want to take that test a total of 4 or 5 times by the end of your junior year. While there's not a downside to taking the test and not doing well, there's certainly an upside to taking the test more so than not, simply because as it relates specifically to the SAT, you can super score those results. So if you get 5 chances to get the best verbal and the best math, that's a lot more advantageous than taking it twice and only getting your best score in 2 opportunities. So maxing out your academic profile is number one. That gives you the most control over the process, in that it allows you the greatest number of schools that you can get into on your own, and makes you the most attractive to the coaches at the schools that have the highest admission standards. A close second behind them would be, focus on becoming the best player that you can. In a day and age where club lacrosse seems to play such a huge role in the lives of these kids and these prospects, club lacrosse allows coaches to see where you are as a player. But you don't get better playing club lacrosse other than the touches that you get when you're out there practicing. Where you get better is when you are in a controlled environment playing for coaches that understand player development, and you go and you work on your weaknesses until they become your strengths. And when I was a little kid, it seemed like all that there was out there was player development situations, camps, clinics, whatever it may be. Now it seems like it's so overwhelmingly, bloated with club lacrosse that becoming a better player doesn't seem like it's the first priority for these kids that want to play college lacrosse. And there's a unique opportunity there, because so many kids are focused on club lacrosse and high school lacrosse that they aren't as focused on becoming a better player. And so if you do that, you do have an opportunity to catch the kids that are currently better than you, and extend the distance between the kids that are chasing you as a player. Those 2 things: max out your academic profile and focus on becoming a better player as it relates to player development. And then the last thing would be, manage the recruiting process the same way that you attack maxing out your academic profile and becoming a better player, right? It's no different. How you do one thing is kind of how you do everything. And if you work hard in school and you listen to your teachers, and you work hard and prep for, your SAT, ACT tests, and you work hard at becoming a great player, work hard at managing your communications with the college coaches so that you cultivate relationships and ultimately that will lead, hopefully, to getting an offer from your first choice. And if not your first choice, hopefully your next best option. And that's what you'll find success.
Oh, it's fantastic. And to kind of elaborate what you were talking about back in the day with the recruiting process, you had one New England 150 or top 205, where you're actually training with college coaches for half of the day before you play games. So you're learning something as well, but that's kind of totally changed. And to kind of add to that, I know that you are doing some fantastic training sessions in Connecticut that my friends have told me are unbelievable. Can you talk a little bit about what you do in those sessions? I know there's a lot of competitions, favorite drills, games, etc. What exactly you do with those?
Yeah, sure. So I run a 16-week progressive program for girls and boys. And the focus is really on, when the program is done, hopefully everybody feels like they have a greater appreciation for the sport in general, a better understanding of how they're evaluated as players, and a greater appreciation for what it means to be a great teammate and competitor. When I talk to kids about how they're evaluated, which is important for them to understand as it relates to their pursuit of trying to make the top teams, whether it's club lacrosse, whether it's high school lacrosse, whether it's getting recruited down the line by the coaches at the schools that they want to attend the most, it's important for them to understand that they're really evaluated in 4 different ways. One would be their athleticism, which is pretty much God-given, but you can enhance that with diet, sleep, strength conditioning programs. The second one would be your skill set, right? Those are the things that are individually based. That's stick handling, which is not getting the ball taken away from you when you have the ball. It's stick work, which is passing and catching. It's ground ball play, being able to pick the ball up one-handed or two-handed based on what the situation is for short sticks, two-handed for long poles. And it's shooting. Scoring really is what the emphasis is on. It. Understanding what goes into scoring, deception, placement, quick release deception, right? 4 dynamics in play there. And then the last one would be, that's the first 2. Athleticism, skill set. The third one would be situational IQ. Understanding what the right play is and understanding that the best players make the right play with the most consistency, not making the superstar play. You watch Mikey Powell, you watch some of these, phenomenal players play. They make some jaw-dropping plays, but if they're focused on making jaw-dropping plays, that's something that sticks out and you remember when you're watching them play, but it's not what makes them great. What makes the best players is they're committed to making the simple and safe play with the most consistency, and if they get jammed up, they're able to make a superstar play to get out of a certain situation. But the best players are the ones that make the smart play with the most consistency. So we're talking about athleticism, we're talking about skill set development, we're talking about situational IQ, and then the last one I think is the most important thing for players on and off the field, and those are your intangibles, right? And your intangibles are simply the things that you decide about yourself that you want people watching the game to say about you and see in you. And those are the things you decide about yourself, right? So being hyper competitive, being coachable, being team first, being mentally tough, being physically durable. All of those things are all things that you decide to be that way or you decide to not be that way. And an awareness of how you're evaluated can be leveraged into maximizing your chances of accomplishing the respective goals that you hope to accomplish as a player. So that's really the focus of the program more so than anything else. I don't need kids to be great players. What I need them to do is I need them to focus. I need them to give max, give their best effort every single time. I need them to compete for everything, and I need them to be tough. You get knocked down, you got an opportunity to decide how you respond to that. You can stay down, you can cry, or you can get up and you can continue to compete. And so I think by helping these kids understand how they are evaluated, hopefully they exit my program each year with a better roadmap on how they can position themselves to make the teams that they're trying out for.
Fantastic. You're a big culture guy. How do you create great culture in the locker room?
I think the number one thing is to create responsible, appropriate, and accomplishable expectations. in any room that I walk into, whether I'm, coaching fifth grade girls or I'm coaching, pro men, it's always about, this is what you can count on from me, right? So they know what they can expect during our time together. Number two, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be tactful in the way that I communicate things. I'm not going to coach effort. I'm not going to coach competitive spirit. I'm not going to coach toughness. Those are all decisions, not limitations. And so those are the things that they're in charge of bringing. Lastly, if I have good news or bad news, I'm going to deliver it immediately. I'm not going to delay giving you bad news, Chris. I'm going to be proactive and say, hey, listen, you did great on A, B, and C. D and E, this is what we need from you. And I feel like if you create proper and responsible expectations, you're honest with people, and then you're proactive and tactful in your communications, I feel like that positions everybody, to get their best. And if you do that, well, then you're I think reaching your potential as a team or a program, whatever it may in terms of the opportunities there.
Great. You were a face-off, stay-on guy, right? And do you ever think that's going to come back?
I do. I think that what I hate to see is kids focusing on something and pigeonholing themselves too early. I think the game is most exciting to play and to watch when there's a shot clock involved. And I think depending upon the length of the shot clock, that could revitalize the need for teams to roll out somebody that can face off at an elite level and also play at an elite level.
With year-round club lacrosse now, do you feel that the days of the two-sport athlete in high school or even three-sport are dead?
I hope not. I think the best thing that you can do as a high school athlete is to play as many sports as you possibly can, whether that's two sports, three sports, one sport, whatever it may be. College coaches want hyper-competitive people, and nothing documents competitive spirit more than playing different sports. And nothing is more of a red flag to a college coach than when a high school kid says, hey, I didn't play football this year because I wanted to lift and run to get ready for the lacrosse season. To me, it's such a cop-out. I don't want somebody that is focused on one thing. I want somebody that's been in as many different competitive environments as possible, in as many different roles as possible. You might be the best ex-attackman on the planet. You're going to be better at lacrosse and better at that, position if you were also the point guard that has to bring the ball up in a really close basketball game against somebody that's a better athlete than you, or you have to, move your football team 80 yards down the stretch of a close football game, or you're playing an overtime soccer game, or hockey game. And I think that the number one thing that prospects, high school prospects, can do to help themselves is to be in as many competitive environments as possible. And I think the way to do that is to play multiple sports. Not to mention you go around life one time. And if you have the ability to play a varsity sport or a JV sport or even a freshman sport when you're younger and you're in high school and you don't do that, you're wasting a great opportunity to become a better athlete, to become a better teammate, to receive different levels of coaching. And the bottom line is the more competitive environments that you're in, the more poise you're going to have in those environments in the future, in my opinion. So I couldn't be a bigger seller of playing only lacrosse or only playing one sport. I think that, the best thing you can do for yourself as it relates to your development as a competitor and as a teammate is to be in as many different types of competitive environments as possible.
I agree. What defines greatness for you in a player? I've asked this to many of my friends who coach other sports. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's as simple as doing everything that you can do proactively to position yourself to get the desired result, but being smart enough to not define success as getting the desired result, right? It's no different in your pursuit to be a great lacrosse player than it is to prepare to take an English exam or chasing the girl you want to chase or whatever it may be, right? You're going to do everything that you can to maximize your chances of getting that desired result. And if you can do that proactively in everything that you do, that within itself defines success. We've all played on teams that have been super talented, that have had a lot of success in terms of wins and losses, but never got really truly connected. We've also played on teams that have been unbelievably unified, unbelievably connected. They just simply weren't talented enough to register a ton of wins. And it's not about wins and losses. It's about getting connected, and it's about doing everything that you can to maximize your chances of getting the desired result. Whether you do or you don't really doesn't matter as much as applying that mantra to everything that you do, because if you do that, you're going to have a lot more success and get the desired result a lot more than you would if you didn't do that. And when you don't, who cares? Because you can't do anything more than being proactive in all of your, efforts and focus in advance. That's how I would define it.
And then one of the last questions is, what's the best advice you've ever received from a coach or a player regarding coaching?
Be authentic would be the number one thing that I would say, is that everybody can see a fake a mile away. Kids can see it probably faster than adults can see it, because as adults, we live in a very fake world oftentimes, which is sad but true. And I think the number one thing that coaches can do for themselves is be yourself, right? And if you are that way and you are consistent in terms of creating expectations, and you're consistent in your communication, and you're consistent in being mindful that it's important, that it is fun first and foremost above everything else, what you're going to find is kids are going to believe in you, and that's when you have the platform to bring out the best in everybody.
Oh, I love it. Oh, thank you, Andy. This was fantastic. I really appreciate your time, man.
100%, Jewett. Always great to see you,
I hope
my
to
man.
see you back east. When are you doing some camps, whether in July or June?
Well, my fall and winter program starts up on Monday, and then my camps will be next summer. I run a girls' camp and a boys' camp. Everything's on lacrossedraws.com.
Okay.
I live in New Canaan, Connecticut, so people that are in a geographic area, if they have the interest, they certainly can find me at lacrossedraws.com. Other than that, it's always great to see, always great to hang with you. I spoke to Mako a couple times this week, and we celebrate your angle on life quite frequently, Jewett.
Thank you. Yeah, I speak to Mako quite often as well. So great to see you, Andy. You're the man. Love you. And I will see you hopefully this summer.
Love you too, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
You good, man. Bye-bye.
Okay, man.